They need to know that in most of the mainstream oils, there are pesticides in the oils because they come from pesticide sprayed seeds. And one of the reasons why they heat oils to frying temperatures in a process called deodorization or distillation, which means boiling the oil, which is the frying temperature. Which you're boiling oil in the frying pan. When you fry them, it's called wiped film evaporation. And the reason they do that is they can remove half of the pesticides. And I found that out from a chemist from the American Oil Chemist Society. And I called him and asked him why they damaged the oils. I will get into the damage in a minute. And he said, well, one of the reasons we deodorize the oil at frying temperature is because we can get rid of 50% of the pesticide. Well, I had been poisoned by pesticides, so I was not impressed. And in my head, I'm saying, oh my God, the other 50% of the pesticides stay in the oil. And so I asked him, well, why don't you begin with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have a pesticide problem to bother with. And there was a silence at the other end of the phone, long silence. And then when he got back, he was really angry. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is only 1% damaged. It's 99% good. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So now I'm backing off and say, well, maybe 1% is not enough. That's when I started doing the math. And I ended up disagreeing with him because he didn't do the math and he thought, oh yeah, 1% damage. When you find out how many molecules that is, it'll blow your mind. Is not a problem. It is a problem. And the toxins that are created by these damaged molecules, or that are these damaged molecules, there's more than 10 different kinds of damage that are done. Only 2 of them are ever measured, so you don't even know they're in there. Nobody talks about it. And then that damage is done by chemicals, by light, which produces free radicals that do chain reactions, 30,000 on average before it settles down. So you get a lot of damage from light. Oxygen, which makes oils rancid and makes them smell and taste bad. And heat, which in the presence of oxygen and light doubles, triples, or quadruples the rate of reaction of light and oxygen. And in the absence of light and oxygen, after about 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius, begins to twist molecules into trans fatty acids, and then that twisting goes up exponentially with increase in temperature. Those damaged molecules never existed in nature. Life therefore never had to make a way to neutralize or break them down, and so they tend to pile up in the body. The body is quite slow in getting rid of them. You just through skin shedding and through the lining of your digestive tract shedding, pretty slow. Although you can sweat some of these oil-soluble nutrients out as well, and we'll get to that as well. And then you ask yourself, how many damaged molecules are in 1 tablespoon of an oil? Because the research said 0.5 to 1% of the oil molecules are damaged by the processing. This is before you put it in the frying pan. So I said, okay, well, how many damaged molecules am I going to find in 1 tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged? And when I do live talks, I ask people to give me numbers, guess, because they don't know. Nobody's told them, they don't know unless they heard my story. So they guess, and they always guess at least 1 billion times too low how many damaged molecules are in that tablespoon of 1% damaged oil. The actual number is 60 quintillion damaged molecules. 60 quintillion, you don't even know what kind of a number that is. 6 followed by 19 zeros. It is more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. And what kind of damage? Well, you could break the molecules, fragmented molecules, or the double bonds could shift to another place and it changes the properties. Or you could get the twisted trans fatty acids, or you get cyclized molecules, which can be very toxic, or you can cross-link fatty acids within triglycerides or between triglycerides, and then your body can't break those down. Or you can dimerize them, which is put 2 fatty acids together, or trimerizing, put 3 together, or polymerize them, where you put a whole bunch of them together and you get like a glue, and your body can't break those down. The only 2 we measure of those 10 is oxidized, so peroxide value, anisodine value, and malonaldehyde, and trans fatty acids. And if they have less than 1% in each category, that's considered safe. And then if you have less than 0.5% trans fatty acids, you can put on the label 0 trans fatty acids. But if you have 0.5% of trans fatty acids in a tablespoon, you will get about 500,000 molecules of trans fatty acids for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. That's not negligible, and that will have effects. So to call that 0 trans fatty acids is actually misrepresentation that hurts the users, that hurts the patients. And then 2 to 4 tablespoons is the normal average amount of oil that people take. We recommend a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, always mixed in food, and the intake spread out over the course of the day. That would be, for most people, 2 to 4 tablespoons. Oils made with health in mind, properly balanced omega-3 and 6 out of glass bottles, and put in the food after it comes off the heat. Never, 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 ever used for frying. Okay, so damage by toxic oils produced by light, oxygen, heat. You're going to hear that quite a few times because that's the big issue for oils: light, oxygen, and heat. And then frying, we'll talk about that more. Next slide. So the total damage, if we add it up, we put the oils, the industry puts oils in plastic bottles. While oil swells plastics, and plastic leaches into oil faster than it leaches into water. That plastic oil ends up in your body. That's not good. And we're hearing more and more about the damage that does in the body. Pesticides, we already talked about that. Then light damage, photon damage, free radical damage through the clear plastic, because the oils are not protected from light. Then you have the 5 to 1% damaged molecules. Then you take 2 to 4 tablespoons. So now you have to multiply that. So let's say multiply it by 3. Then oxidation from open bottles, because they're pretty sensitive. So we keep them in the fridge and we keep them closed. But once you open it, air gets in, so you get gradual deterioration. So we tell people, use up the oil bottle within 8 weeks. This is not oil that lasts forever. Oils are sensitive nutrients. They're like perishable goods. And then when you burn foods, you burn the oils. You burn the foods in oils. And frying, you have to multiply the number of damaged molecules in that oil by at least another 3 to 6 times, because you simultaneously damage the oil with light, oxygen, and heat in the frying pan. And then every day you have that, and then you multiply it by the number of days that you eat such oils. And let's say if it's 30 years, you would have to multiply that number by 10,000, because that's the number of days in 30 years. And you can do the math on that yourself. And then the damage, misrepresented study results. Yeah, they lie to you. Often the abstracts are written by somebody. They hire somebody to write the abstract, and sometimes they do that for accountability reasons, because then they can say, if there's a mistake, if something's wrong, blame the person who we hired to write the abstract, and then that protects their reputation unfairly. And sometimes the abstract, when I read them, you read the abstract, most people just read abstracts. If you read the entire article, you find out that the abstract says something completely different than what the study shows. So then there's cheating in study design. and that's to get specific outcomes. And we've seen quite a bit of that in the past few years. Sometimes it's honest error because somebody didn't think it through, or somebody didn't have the foundational knowledge they needed to do it right. Sometimes they make wrong assumptions. Sometimes it's based on biased beliefs. Sometimes it's based on hidden agenda. The hidden agendas come from paradigms, how scientists think. They put pressure on themselves to toe the line. We've seen that a lot in the past few years. They ignore the context, but then they pick they ignore reporting on the context, but they pick a context that will give them the results that they're looking for. So if you want to prove that the body can't convert omega-3 and omega-6, well, you just pick a context in which that would be true, by not getting enough of the minerals and the vitamins you need, by having too many saturated fats and sugar and starch, and other fats and omega-6s. So you can literally design the study into a context that will give you any result you want. Yes, the body can convert. No, the body can't convert. You just set it up in a way that will show you that. We know science well enough to be able to do that. And then sometimes they're deliberately misleading, and that comes from sometimes peer pressure, sometimes institutional pressure, and sometimes from politics, and sometimes from the people that the researchers get grants from. Because if you get a grant from damaged oil industry, you don't really want to talk about damaged oils, because then you won't get grants. So there's lots of, and then when research becomes unreliable, then you have to depend more on personal experience and personal observation. But you can only do accurate personal observation when you're in a calm, neutral, still, thought uncluttered state of being, with no agenda other than to find out what is true. And that takes some personal development that is also not a requirement in our professional institutions. And so, and then the last issue is that if you're a doctor or you're an educator and you're dealing with patients, you have to be able to trust that the manufacturer is doing what they're saying what they're doing, is maintaining the standards and processes they say they've set, and don't change their mind or cut corners for better profit or whatever, or because the company got sold. So there's a trust factor there that also makes it difficult. And as a result, many health promoters recommend foods only and no oils at all. Understandable why, but that may not be the best advice for patients. And I have 40 years of experience saying, yeah, I think that may not be the best advice for patients. I'm not sure that I'm going to convince any of those people, but I'm at least going to give it a shot. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to talk about essential nutrients because that's the foundation of everything we do. And the definition of essential was developed by researchers based on animal and human studies, and eventually on intravenous nutrition, because you could control the intake of nutrients most effectively that way. And they call it nutrient essential by a very specific definition. But in the marketplace, people will call things essential that are not essential by this definition, because if they say it's essential, then people will say, well, if it's essential, I better buy it. So they lie in the marketplace about what essential means. For instance, fish oil, EPA, and DHA are often called essential nutrients. They are not essential nutrients. Here's the definition. First thing is, a nutrient is essential if you must have it to live and be healthy. You cannot make it in your own body from anything else, and you must therefore bring it in from outside, and that would be as food or as supplement. That's the first part. The second part is if you don't get enough of any essential nutrient, your health will deteriorate, your symptoms will get worse with time, and if you don't get enough long enough, you die. These are the essential building blocks for body construction and repair and maintenance. Life has to have those in order to build a body. If the third definition, this is the good news, if you return enough of the inadequately supplied nutrient, essential nutrient, to the diet before you die, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. And that's because life knows how to make a body that functions optimally if you take responsibility at your mouth for optimizing the intake of all of the essential nutrients that life requires to make a body that works. And that definition fits 42 nutrients, 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids from proteins, 2 essential fatty acids from oils. And by the way, those 2 are the most chemically sensitive, high energy molecules of any of our essential nutrients. And how about this? 0 from carbohydrates. There are no essential carbohydrates, which makes carbohydrates the least important food because there's nothing in carbohydrates that you cannot get elsewhere. And then, of course, carbs like white sugar and white starch and potatoes and grains and products made with them. The carbs are mainly fuel, and carbohydrate fuel can lead to blood sugar swings, insulin swings, mood swings, cravings, and carb addiction. Of course, there are also carbs that are fiber, and those are good food for the microbiome, and they're also helpful in gut function. But the energy carbs are the least important food, even though we put them on the bottom of the food pyramid in 1977, when what was it called? The something on nutrition and health was published, and then they got put on the bottom of the food pyramid, and that's we should eat the most. Greens should have been put on the bottom of the food pyramid. The oils got put on top for the thing to eat least. Those should have been on the second level along with proteins. And carbs should have been, never eat more carbs than you burn, because if you don't burn the carbs you eat, you will wear them because you force your body to turn them into fat if you don't burn the carbs you eat. And most of the overweight, even though people are arguing it, in 20 years from that food pyramid, where carbs became the main food, overweight in United States went from 25 to 60% of the population, and nobody said anything. Anyway, so omega-6 and omega-3, linoleic acid and alpha-linolenic acid are essential by the researchers' definition. And once again, EPA and DHA are not essential fatty acids, but essential fatty acid derivatives that the body can make if enough ALA in the right amount and ratio with omega-6 is provided for the body. More physical health problems come from damaged essential fatty acids than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits come from essential fatty acids undamaged in the right ratio